All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. Jeff here. Dan, how are you?
Doing good, buddy. It's this is that great time of year where the weekend is going to be even better with March Madness. I'm looking forward to it.
So lately, I've been starting the pods off with just like random conversation. Curious, what's your opinion on slap boxing?
Oh my God. I don't like it. It's just awkward for me. I know Dana White started a league, and I'm a big UFC fan and everything like that. I don't mind watching people beat the piss out of each other with fists, knees, legs, and elbows. But when it comes to slapping people, I just think it's dumb. I don't know.
Yeah, my biggest problem with it when I first watched it. So when it comes to boxing, let's say we touch gloves, and at that point we're on an equal playing field. You may be a better boxer than me, but we both have an equal opportunity to quote unquote win the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Two people are locked in the octagon. You touch gloves. Yeah, there might be a more skilled fighter, but for the most part, both people have the opportunity to do the same thing. My problem with slap boxing essentially is like you walk up to this podium, you flip a coin, and you pray to God that you get the coin toss. Otherwise, it's like you might get KO'd before you even throw a slap.
Yeah.
Like, I'm watching some of these one hitters, dude, and it's like I watched one that went back and forth for like 2 or 3 times. But for the most part, it seems like some of these slaps are literally one hit KO, dude. I'm like, geez Louise. But
yeah, it just gives me cringe vibes, and I can live without it. It's just weird.
I only bring it up. I've been listening to a lot of Bussin' with the Boys lately, and they just recently were basically like behind the scenes with Dana White in Vegas, and I've obviously seen a bunch of clips because it's been pretty popular. But I was just like, I wonder what his opinion is. I know you're a combat sport guy, but
yeah.
Let's talk a little hockey to start off. So Michigan hockey started the Big Ten tournament, and they beat
Wisconsin
2-0. So it didn't even get to a third game. Their second round, they play Ohio State, and they came out and scored a goal in the first 16 seconds, and then proceeded to score 3 more in the first period. Ended up winning 7-3. Kind of a beatdown, different from what we've seen when we were at the outdoor game in Cleveland. Opinions on the first 2 rounds and what you've seen from Michigan hockey thus far?
Yeah, the Wisconsin game, they faced a lot more adversity than they did against Ohio State. Wisconsin kept it close. I went to game 2 of the Wisconsin series on the Saturday where they closed it out, and Wisconsin had it neck and neck, and Michigan scored late and pulled away at the end there, and it was great atmosphere. A lot of people really dig playoff atmosphere in hockey, and that was honestly my first playoff game at Yost. So the experience was great, electric feeling, and then they go ahead and they drum up Ohio State 7-3. Which, man, I wish I could have been there. It looked amazing to see, and the big factor of why it went the way it did in Cleveland and in Columbus the Thursday before was no Luke Hughes, and so having Luke Hughes back, essentially their best player outside of Philly, and it really made a difference. And nothing's better in this world than beating Ohio State at literally anything. I mean, if it was checkers national championship style, I would be down for it. So yeah, they came out guns blazing. It was great to see.
Yeah, I've probably only watched 5 total games this year, maybe.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are against Ohio State, weirdly enough. So, I totally get up for that stuff. Just like you said, if it was swimming, I would watch Michigan compete against Ohio State. So this weekend, I believe it's Saturday. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
They have Minnesota at Minnesota.
Yes.
Opinions on that one? What is the season series at this point?
So far in this season, Michigan is leading 3-1. Actually, back in, I believe it was October, November. It might have been around Halloween. Minnesota and Michigan played at Yost for a Friday-Saturday series, and Minnesota scraped them both games. And then Minnesota went to Minneapolis in December, and they split. I believe they split. Yeah. See, what was it? They split 2 overtime games, and so obviously that was a huge deal. And Minnesota's been pretty much cruising in the #1 spot since then. And so yeah, this game is absolutely huge. Michigan, this is actually a repeat last year. They faced off at Minnesota's house last year for the Big Ten championship, and Michigan won 4-3. So these guys are really. This is gonna be an intense game. And real quick, the all first team came out for the conference this year, and three Minnesota players are on it, and 2 Michigan players are on it. So it just goes to show you that these are literally, 1A, 1B of the league.
Yeah. How do you think this one goes down?
I'm going to be on the edge of my seat, man. I think Michigan, they got some momentum. They got everyone back. Essentially, they're fully healthy, and I think it's definitely doable. It's probably. I have a feeling it's going to be, pretty high scoring, and as long as Michigan stays off, they stay out of the penalty box. They don't they don't get nicked up with those 5-minute majors, get themselves in trouble. I think they'll be okay. But yeah, I think Michigan win this one, and I think it's going to be like 5-4, 6-5. It's going to be high scoring. Yeah.
So last time we spoke on here, Michigan needed basically to get 2 wins out of their next 2 games / the Big Ten tournament. They went 0-3. They lost on the road at Illinois. They lost on the road at Indiana to close out the year. Both were overtime games. And then they lost in the Big Ten tournament to Rutgers. So, unfortunately, the team, they finished, I think, 17-15. I think was their final record. Maybe it was 17-16. It hasn't been exactly the year that we kind of anticipated, but with all that said, they didn't get an invite into the NCAA tournament, which we didn't kind of really expect them to once they dropped all 3 of those games. They got into the NIT. Before we talk about the NIT, talk about kind of what you think about the late season collapse, not being able to get 1 win, let alone 2, not being the typical Michigan team that we usually are looking forward to once March starts.
Yeah, it was. You really thought they were going to get it together after they won on the road at Rutgers, and they, won in overtime against Wisconsin. So there was some hope there, and it's very odd because these 3 games where they lost by a total of 18 points, it was single losses against Illinois and Indiana. It was by 12 against Rutgers, and that was all with Jet Howard in the lineup. And without Jet Howard, they win those 3 games. They went on the road at Rutgers. They win that overtime game against Wisconsin, and then you just beat Toledo without him. So I don't know what it is. It's just, we've talked about it. Just the defense isn't great. Their cold spells really derive a lot off of the turnovers. They just snowball effect the turnovers, and that was a good thing with John Beilein. Teams rarely turn the ball over, and now they're in the double figures every game. It definitely hurts to see this team in the NIT. I mean, they beat Toledo, and they needed a lot of help from their bench. We'll talk about in a second, but yeah, these the downhill stretch. When you're right there at the very end and come up short, it definitely stinks.
Yeah, so obviously they get invited to the NIT. And just in typical Michigan basketball season form this year, they were announced as a 2 seed. It was then changed to a 3 seed. They had to play Toledo. Toledo dominated the MAC this year. They went 27-7. They lost the championship game, so they didn't get the tournament invite, unfortunately. Kent State did. So we were kind of getting an angry, hot Toledo Rocket team. And they came out in the first half, punched us in the mouth. And I really thought to myself, how embarrassing. We're in the NIT, and then we're going to lose in the first round of the NIT. Michigan ends up battling back, like you said, without Jet Howard. I think Jet had became one of my favorite Wolverines ever early this year, it's just like I thought he was just a very like a player that had a ton of swag, kind of like could stroke it from anywhere. Got us the exhibition game to start the year. I think he had like 39. He followed it up his first game. I think he had damn near 20 something. I mean, he just like there was that game where he started 7 and 8 from beyond the arc. Like literally a player that just got super hot, kind of like Stauskas, Duncan Robinson, all those guys that could really stroke it. And it's like the team couldn't put together the wins, and then as the season started to progress, he got hurt, and then they won despite him being out of the line. And it's just kind of like, did he sit out of the NIT game because he kind of looks at it like players sitting out of bowl games? You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of speculation that he probably could have went. Matter of fact, there's a good amount of videos on Twitter of him taking half-court jump shots before the game. Jump shots.
Yeah.
Standing up and down that ankle, and it's like, too good to play. It's kind of giving me a sour taste. I don't know what your opinion is on Jet before we look at Vanderbilt, but we took care of Toledo. I guess opinions on Toledo, opinions on Jet.
Well, Jet Howard, honestly, I'm glad you brought that up because I think I briefly scrolled past on Twitter and I seen it. I didn't even think anything of it, of him doing the half-court or anything. I didn't even put two and two together of him sitting out of the game, possibly of non-injury, reasons. That'd be kind of, unfortunate if that is the case, especially with being the coach's son, and kind of hard for me to believe that. But then when you see the video, so I don't know, precautionary. I don't know. It's very, very weird. But yeah, in Toledo, JT Shoemate and that Milner kid, they lit Michigan up. They had, 4 guys going to double figures, and they were out. And it took Joey Baker to hit 3-pointers to keep Michigan rolling. If he doesn't hit those 5 3-pointers, then they, who knows where they would have been at. They were only up by like 4 or 5 with 50 something seconds to go, and then they actually grew to 10. And reminds me, but I'm just thinking about that Illinois game, I believe it was, is like they had a chance to win that game at the final shot or tied up at the final shot, and Joey Baker had a perfectly wide open look, and he completely airballs it. But here, saves the day. McDaniel had a decent night. He went 16 and 8. Michigan out rebounded Toledo 39-29. They had like 30+ offensive rebounds. So, yeah, they crashed the boards. They did what they had to do, but man, they got lit up on defense, and that's kind of the story of the situation of the turnovers. But that's all I really got from Toledo game. Outside of that, yeah, I'm good, man.
Because Yale lost to Vanderbilt, Michigan's going to go on the road at Vanderbilt this Saturday. I think I brought this up to you last time we potted. I'm going to bring it up again. Do you think Hunter Dickinson played his last game at Chrysler Center? Or do you think he's going to come back after this season?
I think it depends on the supporting cast. I think if Kobe Buffkin and Jet Howard come back, I think Hunter Dickinson comes back. I think they got a potential. I think there's a potential possibility that they lose all 3 of their guys, or all 3 of them come back. And I think Joey Baker's done. I think he's a one and done here on this transfer. I could be wrong.
So Joey Baker, they were just talking about this on the broadcast. Joey Baker is going to apply after the season, it sounds like, for one more season.
Did he have an injury?
No, his freshman year, he played 4 games for a total of 18 minutes.
Yeah.
So something about redshirt, COVID year, something along those lines, they're going to apply. And it sounds like they would be shocked if he didn't get that opportunity, so he would probably be back.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it depends on Kobe and Jet, what they're doing regarding Big Hunter Dickinson.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, especially because I felt like I was Jet's biggest fan. And before the season, when we were talking about the expectations of this team, even when we're down at Little Caesars Arena early in the year, non-conference play, we're playing Eastern Michigan, and we had high hopes then. Obviously, Eastern Michigan gave us a scare. We thought it was only because Amani Bates is a dog. No, it turns out Michigan's just not very good. But I remember texting you. I said, if Jet Howard ends up being Michigan's best player or second best player, Michigan's going to be super scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's an argument that maybe he was their second best player. I think Kobe Buffkin really turned on that role. Doug McDaniel, the later the season went on, it seemed like they got better. But there's just an argument to be made that when Jet Howard was in the lineup, we were not very good. And maybe that's just a small sample size. Who knows? It's really hard to kind of tell. But I'd actually be okay if he left and Kobe and Hunter returned and they attacked the transfer portal, because right now the recruiting class is not good. They have one top 100 kid coming in. I forget his name. George Washington III, right?
Something. Yeah, it's escaping me. Yeah,
I believe it's George Washington III. But if Jet Howard does not play a single game during this NIT run, I'm over it. I'm just like, okay, you can go.
Yeah, it's a very forgettable season. So I mean, of course, I'd like to see these guys win the NIT. So yeah, yes. little coat hanger to hang your hat on. But other than that, yeah, very, very, very odd situation there. And they're going up against a Vanderbilt team. This is going to be an interesting game because, you know, real quick, Vanderbilt is coached by Jerry Stackhouse. Didn't know that until I started looking into this. Yeah. And they've beaten some really good teams that are in the tournament, like the real tournament. And the thing about this, the catch-22 is, or the plot twist is, their best player is going to be playing in this game. Liam Hobbins or something like that. He's 7-foot center. Liam Robbins it is, and he's out with a leg injury. So the 7-foot center that could have been a matchup nightmare for Hunter Dickinson, or at least a tougher matchup rather, isn't going to be playing. So there are two. It's going to be guard on guard action. It's going to be interesting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, and I'd probably agree. Would you rather win the NIT or just get a shot in the tournament?
Be like a one and done?
Yeah.
I'd rather win the NIT.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree. I don't know that I agree or disagree. I think
I guess it depends on who you play.
Gun to my head, there's just I watched that Toledo game the other night and it didn't feel special at all. Winning the NIT tournament may feel pretty special. It remains to be seen. But as of right now, like, I just know what my feelings would have been had that been the NCAA tournament. I just know from all these past years, just like Michigan gets in, just it's a high energy. My emotions are running deep. I mean, it's just that I just haven't felt that in this NIT tournament. I do want to point something out about the NIT though, and this is why I kind of agree with you. So college basketball is a very unique sport. Almost to the complete opposite of college football, and we've talked about this verbatim. So college football doesn't really have Cinderellas. There's a lot of teams that end their season with a win because of bowl season. College basketball is a very unique sport. There's only 2 teams in the entire sport that end their season with a win. And that's the team that wins the NCAA tournament and the team that wins the NIT tournament. Because everybody plays in a conference championship and everybody has to be eliminated at some point. And then once you go to the next tournament, you would either win it or lose it. And it's really just the NCAA champion and then the NIT champion. So Michigan can be one of 2 teams to end their season with a win. That means something. I mean, if they can roll off, I believe would they have to go 4-0?
For what?
To win the NIT, they'd have to go 4-0, right?
I believe so, yeah, because it's not 64 teams yet.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, you're looking at a 21-win season, which isn't great, but it sounds a hell of a lot. I mean, it would be like Michigan's, gosh, I want to say like 4th or 5th 20-win season in a row. So I mean, it's better than nothing. But yeah. Opinions on Vanderbilt. You think we knock Vanderbilt off on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it possibly look a lot like the Toledo game. Obviously, because like I mentioned a minute ago, the 7-footer is not there. Tyron Lawrence and Ezra Manjan. Hopefully, I don't know how to say that kid's last name. Both of them are one's a junior, one's a senior, and I believe the guards they rotate off the bench are junior and seniors as well. So Doug McDaniel is going to be facing guys that are a lot older than him. That's going to be something to watch. Vanderbilt is a 71% team in terms of free throw shooting. And yet they've got 2 wins over Kentucky, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Auburn, like I said, all in the tournament. And another funny thing is they played Alabama this year. They lost 101-44. They only scored 15 points in the first half. They lost by 57 points. But since that game, they're 11-2. So they're kind of on a hot streak. So again, I think this is going to be like the Toledo game. I think high scoring, back and forth, and not a lot of defense getting played here. And I mean, Hunter Dickinson, he might drop 20 and 10, but that doesn't mean the game isn't going to be close. And so I think it's going to be extremely tight.
Anything else on basketball?
Man, I wish we were in the dance, but alas, we are not. And I'm ready to move on.
Yeah. So Fox Sports dropped their way too early top 25. Michigan ranked above Ohio State. I kind of want to talk about some of these notable teams and what your opinions are. But first off, Michigan being ranked above Ohio State preseason. Thoughts there?
I mean, got cheeks clapped by them 2 years in a row. I know it's 1 year is way different than the next, essentially, but I mean, Michigan's returning. I don't know 100%, but out of the whole Big Ten, I'm pretty sure Michigan is probably the most veteran team going into the year with everyone coming back and everything like that. So, makes sense to me. Same quarterback. Ohio State doesn't have the same quarterback. Michigan is returning 2 of the best, probably the best running back duo in the whole country. Ohio State fans probably going to be riding with their boys, but I don't really care. People with the brain are going to ride with Michigan's Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards.
Yeah.
And then on our defense, I know I would lose a couple of guys. We'll lose a couple of guys on the offensive line, but those are the positions that we reloaded at, especially in the transfer portal. So makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think Michigan today, and I mean, humble me if I'm mistaken here, I think they have the best quarterback in the conference.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, fair. I mean, I can't name one better.
Yeah. They have the best coach in the conference, in my opinion, right now. They have the best offensive line in the conference. They have the best running back in the conference. And their next running back is arguably a top 5 running back in the conference. So they definitely have the best duo. And yeah, I just have to feel pretty good. I mean, the coaching staff's pretty much intact. There's nothing, and I said this back when Michigan could potentially play Ohio State in the national championship game. I said, there's nothing that Ohio State has done to close the gap. And as of right now, I still believe that. They've done nothing to close the gap. So time will tell. We'll go over these, and I'll let you, throw some opinions out. Georgia 1. Agree?
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. Michigan 2 feels right. Ohio State 3. Personally, I think it's a little high.
They're only 4 because of Caleb Williams. If the Caleb Williams was not at Southern Cal, I bet you they're in the late teens.
Are you talking about USC?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he is there. So 4, I almost feel like they need to be a slightly higher than 4. But
okay,
just my opinion. So this next one's intriguing, and I want to go a little deeper. Tennessee at 5. I have a question. We've been doing this pod since 2020, okay? And I was a huge Joe Milton guy, unapologetic. I thought he was the savior. Is there a chance that Michigan was just so bad it wasn't actually Joe Milton? Or am I just speaking out of place with Joe Milton and Tennessee's just a good football team and he's a solid quarterback? Opinions on Joe Milton?
You know what? It remains to be seen. I think a lot played into the Joe Milton project. A lot of it, too, that was 2020, right?
Yeah.
Michigan didn't find out they were playing any type of college football till late September. And with, trying to keep politics out of this podcast, our governor, Michigan's governor, I mean, you live in Ohio, I live in Michigan, but my governor was a little bit more strict on fall sports, winter sports. Even Michigan's president at the time, Marsh Lissel, didn't want anything to do with it and canceled Michigan hockey in 2020. Didn't let them play the game anymore. So with not a lot of practice time, not a lot of prep, I think that played into it. And also, as a whole team, I just don't think they had their ducks in a row. And so I think that played a massive part. And I think with the SEC and the high flyers that go down there, I think that there's a potential that he could probably be the next head coach. We have to see. But I mean, he's got a rifle, he's got a cannon, and I don't know if it was Urban Meyer just kind of like doing his little fluff, but I mean he was boosting Joe Milton up to be next Cam Newton, whatever, and on Fox and everything like that. And he's always been a big supporter of JJ with his words and stuff like that. So maybe he actually believes that. Maybe he does think that Joe Milton, and maybe that means that Joe Milton is actually worthy of the break.
Yeah, not to get political, and just I do want to circle back just for a second. As many times as we've talked about that 2020 season, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody use that, and I don't want to say the word excuse, but I'm going to say excuse just because, for lack of a better term. It is interesting. I almost wonder if Michigan just kind of wrote the fact off that they didn't think we were going to have a season, so maybe they didn't go balls to the wall. There was no spring practice. There was no really fall camp. So, yeah, maybe they just were ill prepared. Maybe that falls on Harbaugh. Maybe that falls on the players. But ultimately, I think Aiden Hutchinson getting hurt that year didn't help either. Maybe that just goes to show you, maybe they just weren't prepared that season. And some of that has to do with the fact that maybe they just didn't think we were going to play. But that's a conversation for another day. Bama at 6, lowest they've been. This is Fox Sports' preseason, so none of this is Bible yet. But this would be the lowest they've opened the season. Opinions of Bama at 6.
Makes sense to me. New quarterback, and real quick, I think Tennessee, Alabama, and this next team at number 7, Penn State. I think all three of these are interchangeable because they're all starting new quarterbacks.
Yeah, Penn State coming off the season that they did, I'm not going to shit on them like I have in the past. This was honestly one of the better Penn State seasons I can remember in a long time. Unfortunately, Michigan and Ohio State were just better than them, and they almost beat Ohio State. So, I mean, they arguably were the second best team in the Big Ten last year. They just came up short. But, yeah, Penn State, interesting at 7 there. Number 8, Florida State, kind of on the rise. They kind of had an up and down year last year. They opened up with LSU. They won that game, and they kind of had some spots where they were good and the spots they were not so good. But Utah, Clemson. So FSU, Utah, Clemson. Any arguments there? For me, Clemson, they take a step back until further notice. Now that they don't have the elite quarterback play of Watson and Lawrence and that, and without Brett Venables on defense, I just don't have a lot of faith in Clemson.
Right. Yeah. I think Dabo Swinney ran out of steam. I think he got the Mac Brown from Texas Longhorns back in the day. I think he's just it's running its course. Could be wrong, and we'll see.
Yeah. I feel like you were riding with this team off and on most of the year last year. Washington at 11. Opinions of Washington, Penix Jr. and them.
Yeah, Penix Jr. is coming back, and I think he got banged up along the way.
He did.
I was kind of I liked what I see early on in the season, and I thought they were a little more. They had more tenacity than they actually did, but they still had a good season. Like they were bad. I mean, Oregon. Bo Nix found his rhythm mid to late, and Oregon pushed their way past them. But I think Washington could be pretty good. And I think right where they're at is fine.
It took them a minute to get off the ground, but they finished the season pretty strong. Notre Dame at 12. What do you think about them? Is that a pretty good spot?
I think so. And they got Sam Hartman from Wake Forest. So, Notre Dame, I feel like even with Brian Kelly on his back nine, they just they weren't able to really land the quarterback situation down. So I guess maybe once they get that taken care of, maybe they compete again.
TCU, Oregon, Whiskey in that order. TCU, I feel like, is a little high. They're kind of just going off the fact that they were just in the national championship game. They lost a lot of pieces. Oregon at 15 feels pretty good with Bo Nix returning. And Wisconsin at 16 just feels weirdly high to me. Opinions.
And the reason why for that, I think, is Luke Fickell. They're expecting him to keep the train running.
And Brandon Allen.
And Tanner Motor, we talked about it a little bit last year. Tanner Mordecai from SMU is coming over, so he can sling it. And a lot of optimism, I think, in Wisconsin because, what are they always known for? Big Hoss offensive line, and they're going to run the ball 40 times a game. Luke Fickell doesn't do that. So it remains to be seen. Are they going to air the ball out a little more? They got Brandon Allen coming back. So they're not going to be they're not going to be an easy out this year. And, they can, just like Iowa, Wisconsin's boasting a defense worthy of making life miserable sometimes. I can see it. Whether they're at 16, 20, 25, doesn't bother me none.
These next three teams are kind of spread out. All of them have interesting names joining. You got Colorado at 20. Deion Sanders coming in. Prime time, coming the new coach, bringing all his luggage with him. 22, Iowa, Cade Cunningham, Eric All. That's interesting. It's kind of Michigan's West team, if you will. And then 24, Texas. You have the quarterback battle between Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers, which that's been reported will go into camp. I mean, there's no clear-cut starter right now. Ewers has to defend the spot from Arch Manning. Opinions on those three?
I just like that little meat there, that in the middle Hardy section of that top 10. I think these are all interchangeable as well. And it's funny, a lot of this top 25 a lot of these teams are dealing with quarterback problems, or new quarterbacks rather. And I'll ask you this regarding Iowa. Now they're talking about Cade McNamara and Eric All. Are you at all rooting for Iowa, or do you want to just see them lose every game?
I am rooting for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find myself wanting to root for them too, because of those two guys. I just I want them to do enough, but not enough to get to the Big Ten championship game, because I don't want to play Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. I don't know. I just feel a little awkward for me. So I hope they do well. I hope they do too well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Ultimately, I think that I have nothing but positive things to say about Cade McNamara. So I'm rooting for him specifically.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Eric All goes, I didn't have anything negative to say. I wish his dad wasn't as negative towards the Michigan fan base on Twitter and the Michigan, football team. But ultimately, no, I think I want those guys to succeed. Am I wanting them to win a Big Ten championship? No. I'm not even sure if they play Ohio State this year, but if they do, for old time's sake, I would love to see them put it down on Ohio State. I think that would be great. Put it down on Michigan State if they play them. I think ultimately, I'll be more times than not, I'll be rooting for Iowa to succeed. I think that's where I fall. Now, as the season goes on, if I hear them chirping about Michigan, yeah, maybe I might change my tune. But as of right now, I got no ill will, especially because JJ has turned into the quarterback that I thought we would be over the last, we'll say, 3 games. Since the second quarter of the Ohio State game, JJ McCarthy's been the quarterback that we were promised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me, the whole Cade situation is we talked about it over, a few months ago, whatever, when Cade announced that he was transferring, and he was on Carson Palmer's brother's podcast, and Jordan Palmer was being kind of a douche and was, calling JJ the other guy and creating this weird tension. Mm-hmm. And, Cade gave everything that he had for Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so whether or not myself, at first I was kind of turned off by it, but he was also turned off by some of the Michigan brass because he was booed off the field at the end of his time there. Why? after going through such hate mail with Michigan, the fandom, why should he show? Does he have any reason to show any, happy thoughts on the way out? Should he, any sympathy for us? I don't expect him to at all. I mean, he obviously had, his qualm. So yeah, I hope Iowa tears up Ohio State if they play them, when they play them, and if and when they play Michigan State. So, good power to them.
Yeah. Any other football notes that you have here?
Yeah. So obviously we're in spring football, and so nothing crazy is coming out until the spring game. You'll see bits and pieces on Instagram, social media, stuff like that, or the highlights. Real quick, Nikhai Hill-Green, obviously he didn't play last year, was rumored to start getting some action in the Hawaii game. That didn't happen. Back in December, according to 24/7 Sports, Jesse Minter said, quote, "He's just dealt with an unfortunate nagging thing," unquote. So we don't know. We thought it could possibly have been soft tissue, something that, they don't want to risk. I guess he's back practicing. So
I've seen him in pads and stuff on social media. It sounds like he's going to be in there. So
right. So that is 100% good news. And a couple things regarding recruiting. I don't get behind paywalls of the recruiting services like that, but I do follow and I read what I can. And so just a couple of news and notes here. Harry Stewart III, three-star running back in next year's class, 2024. And he just listed Michigan in his top 3. He's got 14 offers, which include Texas A&M, Baylor, Missouri. Bryce Underwood, which is a 5-star quarterback out of Belleville, Michigan. He just had really good progress with Kurt Campbell, our new quarterback analyst. And so that's obviously good news, especially if the Jane Davis and the Dominic Raiola or Dylan Raiola thing doesn't work out. You have a plan C. Hopefully not. You don't have to rely on that. Next is Brian Robinson. He's a 2024 4-star. ESPN's got him in the top 300. He's an edge from Ohio, and he got offered by Michigan, and he's got the whole tweets going on or whatever, boasting and praising the maize and blue. And then another probably a bigger story right now is Brandon Hillman. He was a 2023 Notre Dame signee. He just released himself from the Irish, and literally the minute it happened, Jim Harbaugh offered him a scholarship on this past Sunday. So that is something to look forward to. He was rated he was rated 137 overall this past year, and he was the number 5 athlete and the 4th player ranked in the state of Virginia. So keep an eye on that. And obviously, Michigan is starting to become a little bit more intriguing to these recruits because I don't know why, but it's now finally starting to catch on of like the factory that Michigan is starting to produce with these edge and pass rushers, all the way from Kwity Paye and Josh Uche, Khalil Hudson, and I know Hudson was more of the Viper, different system, but you know what I mean. Those guys, Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, and so yeah,
Chase Winovich.
Yep, a lot of good news.
Yeah. David Ajabo.
Yeah, yeah, can go all day for sure.
Yeah, I did see that Underwood, the 5-star for, is it next year or 2025, you said?
2025.
Yeah, I did see that he was in Ann Arbor recently, taking the photos everybody takes with the different jersey combinations. And it just reassures me that we better see a Maze jersey, blue pants sometime this season, or I'm going to riot. Because that look is fire.
Uh-huh.
Anything else? Football.
Other than the news that you should drop.
Yeah, so I think we talked briefly last pod that we're going to do a mini series of the top Michigan games in the Jim Harbaugh era. We have more specifics now coming at you though. So Dan and I each gave our top. I think I gave 24 games and Dan gave 23. I took the averages of those games. And shockingly, we had 21 we had 19 mutual games, and then I took Dan's highest rated game that was not on my list, and I took my highest rated game that was not on Dan's list, and we created a top 21 Desmond Howard. I thought that was kind of cool. So we'll do a top 21 series. We're going to be dropping X amount of games at a time. We haven't finalized how many episodes will be in this series, but we feel pretty good that it's at least 5 episodes. And we have a bunch of honorable mentions that we'll be releasing as well. We're pretty excited about this. This will not just be a, hey, number 21 is this game. Number 20. No, we're going in depth. We're going behind the scenes, kind of like a recap. Do you remember this game from 2017, this game from 2016, this game from 2015, Jim's first year, this game from 2021, just recently 2022? We're going to say why we had this game in that spot. We're going to kind of go through the stats, the storylines of the time. I'm very excited for this because we're going to take a time to actually deep dive a specific group of games. And when I brought this up to you, I remember your exact response. You're like, this is totally in my realm. This is what I'm passionate about. I love doing the history of Michigan. And I'm hoping that as successful as this is, we can do more down the line, whether that's Michigan basketball games, whether that's quarterbacks, running backs, Michigan players all time, maybe Michigan's most disappointing games. Like, it just opens up a whole new realm to talk more Michigan.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really excited. It's March 15th right now, and we were looking to start here in April, and I already have everything. We've already done our prep for the most part, and so now it's just really, dangling the olive branch over ourselves and everyone else listening. So we're super excited about it. You don't want to miss it, and whether maybe you're not a Michigan fan and you listen to this, whatever. I think it's just cool to travel back in time and kind of talk about, whether you were at the game personally and how it affected you and what you remember about it. And so, yeah, absolutely. That is something I love doing.
Yeah, as a kid, I grew up a huge WWF, WWE guy, and there's podcasts for days on people that were in the business at those times that will do deep dives on a pay-per-view from 1999. And it just kind of like going back and reminiscing, listening to the behind-the-scenes stories and things like that. Even my wrestling fandom's not nearly what it was when I was a kid, but I can still enjoy going back and listening to those. Now, mind you, we're just going to do the games from Harbaugh's era, so they're not that long ago, but it is one of those things where it's like 2016, 2015. That's a long time ago at this point. I mean, the deep dive into one of those games, I'm pretty excited about. There was a podcast I listened to back, I believe it was 2018, where a couple of guys recapped the top, I believe it was 10 New England Patriot games from 2012 on. And I had a really good time listening to those because they were actually taking the time to talk about those games and what impact they had. So I'm really excited to do this. I know you are too, and I think this is going to be a great series.
100%.
Anything else?
Well, I get, like I just said, super eager beaver over here trying to, wait for this to drop. And I kind of teased you, Corey, and Jamie that, some of the folks or everyone here that's listening now should know that I do the hype videos or whatever. So I have one I made back in February, and I literally got this in the hopper, and I can't release it now because it's just so far away from the season. So I'm like, I can't wait to show this out. And so yeah, other than that, man, yeah, I'm good. And I know we got a big weekend coming up. I'll be in downtown Ann Arbor watching the Big Ten Championship hockey game and March Madness. My cousin's coming back, who graduated from U of M, and we're gonna have a diaper party for him. So super. I mean, I'm 30. I'm gonna be 34 here in June. I love feeling like a college kid and hanging out in downtown Ann Arbor at the college bars. It makes you feel good inside.
Yeah, every time I get a chance to be back in Ann Arbor, it's always a good time. As of right now, unless something changes, I'll be at the spring game April 1st, 3:30. Super excited for that. And hopefully Michigan basketball can make its run through the NIT, and that gives us some pod material. But otherwise, super excited for this Michigan series. So with that, we will leave you alone. Thanks for listening. Anything else?
Go Blue.
Go Blue. We out. Real talk.